The executive floor of Linford Dynamics offered a panoramic view of downtown Chicago. Sleek glass walls, modern art, and, today, my Uncle Darren's smug expression as I quietly emptied his trash bin. "Camille's here to tidy up before the investor presentation," he announced to his son, my cousin Trevor, who didn't even look up from his iPad. "We can't have the place looking like a dorm room when Westlake Holdings arrives, can we?" I said nothing as I collected the stained coffee mugs and straightened the stack of business magazines on his desk. If only they knew. Westlake Holdings, that's my company. I'm Camille Vance, and to my family, I'm nothing more than the overnight cleaning staff at their beloved tech firm. But that's only part of the story. 14 years ago, when I was just 20 and grieving my father's sudden death, Uncle Darren seized control of Linford Dynamics, the software company my father had founded and grown from scratch. He told my mother she was in over her head and that I was too young and inexperienced to lead. He offered to help by stepping in temporarily. That help turned into a corporate hijacking. In under a year, he'd quietly manipulated the board, watered down our voting rights, and forced us out with a shallow buyout. My mother signed the papers through tears while Uncle Darren condescendingly patted her hand. "This is for the best," he said. "Tech isn't really a place for women anyway." That sentence burned into my memory. I promised myself that day I would take it all back. While they moved on, I worked. Cleaning offices by night, studying software engineering and business administration by day. I earned my degrees quietly, anonymously, while watching Linford Dynamics from the shadows. No one looked twice at the janitor. And that invisibility, it was my greatest weapon. I listened, I watched, I learned. By 29, I had earned an MBA and founded Westlake Holdings, named after the quiet suburb where my dad had started coding in our basement. With patience and precision, I built a portfolio of tech investments, slowly acquiring shares in Linford Dynamics through shell companies and quiet partnerships. Uncle Darren never saw me coming. To him, I was still Camille, the failure, the disappointment, the cleaner who lived in a modest apartment and never quite lived up to her potential. But now, Linford Dynamics is on the brink of collapse, poor leadership, bad product rollouts, and aging infrastructure, and they need a lifeline. That's why today, my firm, Westlake Holdings, was invited to discuss a full acquisition. So here I am, pushing a cleaning cart past smug relatives who still think I'm nothing more than hired help. But in 20 minutes, I'll walk into that boardroom not as Camille the janitor, but as Camille Vance, founder and CEO of the very firm they're begging for a bailout. Let's see how they smile then. Big trouble. My uncle's reckless leadership had pushed the company to the brink. Linford Dynamics was hemorrhaging clients, its software hopelessly outdated, and its once loyal engineering team whittled down to bare bones. They were desperate, and that desperation led them to reach out to Westlake Holdings, unaware they were knocking on the very door of the woman they'd tried to erase. For the past 6 months, I'd quietly returned to their orbit, working the night shift again. Custodial staff, they still called me. And in that role, I'd uncovered everything. Falsified revenue projections, creative accounting, hidden liabilities in overseas partnerships, the shell games they played with shareholder equity. I saw it all. And while Uncle Darren and Trevor posted photos from golf resorts and yacht parties, their employees scrambled to survive under mounting layoffs and budget freezes. Now here I was, pushing a mop cart one last time before the big meeting. "Camille," Uncle Darren barked as I walked toward the stairwell. "Make sure you polish the conference table properly. We've got major investors coming in." "Yes, Uncle," I replied evenly. He didn't even glance up. "Also, try to stay out of sight this time. We don't need the investors mistaking you for anything important." I closed the door behind me with a calm nod. Downstairs, tucked behind the boiler room, was my locker. Inside hung a tailored black Saint Laurent blazer, a pair of sleek Louboutin pumps, and a leather folio containing documents that would change everything. My phone vibrated. "Car is outside, Miss Vance. Ready when you are. Asha." "Boardroom is prepped. Westlake execs are assembled. Your mother's plane just landed. She's bringing the revised contract." I smiled. My mother had played her role brilliantly all these years, widowed, fragile, forgotten. But she had been the silent architect behind every major acquisition Westlake Holdings made. The Grieving Widow Act? A performance worthy of an award. We had waited a decade for this moment. I glanced at myself in the reflection of the break room microwave, still dressed in my cleaning uniform. But in less than 2 hours, I'd walk back through the executive doors not as Camille the janitor, but as Camille Vance, majority shareholder of Westlake Holdings and incoming owner of Linford Dynamics. The same company they stole from my father. The same company Uncle Darren said women could never run. I straightened a crooked frame on the wall, an old photo of him at a shareholder gala, all fake confidence and borrowed pride. "We'll see about that," I whispered. An hour later, I stood in the lobby restroom of Linford Dynamics, my transformation complete. The worn-out polo and khakis were zipped into my designer bag. In their place, I wore precision-cut wool, sky-high heels, and the poise of a woman who built an empire in silence. I applied a final stroke of lipstick, adjusted the pendant at my collar, Dad's initials etched in silver, and stepped into the hallway. Let the meeting begin. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or quietly plotting your moment, don't miss what happens next. Camille's just getting started. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the look on Uncle Darren's face when the cleaner takes her seat at the head of the table. You'll want front row seats. The nervous, invisible Camille was gone. In the mirror now stood the CEO of Westlake Holdings, worth more than the entire Linford Dynamics building. I tucked a final wave of hair behind my ear and applied one last sweep of scarlet lipstick. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. He just brushed past me in the waiting lounge without so much as a glance. "Ready when you are, sweetheart." I smiled. My mother had played her role flawlessly for over a decade, posing as the fragile widow who couldn't handle business after my father died. The family never questioned why she still vacationed in Europe, donated to museums, or wore Cartier to church. They chalked it up to smart investing by her advisors, which of course was me. Through the frosted glass of the executive boardroom, I saw them all seated. Uncle Darren, puffed up at the head of the table, projecting false confidence to a row of expectant board members. Trevor seated beside him, still glued to his phone, likely scrolling through crypto trends or dating apps. The same relatives who once smiled as they pushed my mother and me out now leaned forward, waiting for their salvation. I checked my watch. Showtime. The receptionist, who just earlier had seen me wheeling a mop bucket, did a visible double take as I approached, in heels and a tailored black suit. "I'm here for the Westlake Holdings meeting," I said with a polite smile. She blinked. "Oh, of course. The CEO of Westlake is expected any moment." I handed her my card. "That's me." Her eyes darted from the name, Camille Vance, CEO, back to my face, a silent apology in her stunned expression. Inside the boardroom, Darren was in full performance mode. "Westlake will be lucky to partner with us," he declared. "Linford Dynamics is positioned to dominate next quarter's tech." He stopped. His eyes landed on me as I stepped inside. Confusion, annoyance, recognition. "I'm sorry, miss, this is a private meeting," he said sharply. "Camille must have forgotten to post the Do Not Disturb sign." "Actually," I interrupted, letting my voice fill the room, "I'm right where I belong." I crossed the room slowly, heels tapping like punctuation on marble. Sliding a card across the gleaming conference table, I said, "Camille Vance, CEO of Westlake Holdings, shall we begin?" The silence was thick. Darren's face drained of color, then flushed again with rising panic. Trevor's phone slipped from his hand, landing with a soft thud. Around the table, expressions shifted. Confused, curious, increasingly uneasy. This is some sort of prank," Darren stammered. You clean this building." "No, Uncle," I replied evenly, taking the seat across from him. "I own the firm you've been courting for months." Though I must admit, my cleaning shifts were informative. I unlocked my briefcase and pulled out neatly tabbed documents, financial discrepancies, investor red flags, unethical layoffs. Several board members leaned forward. Let's discuss your books, your projections, and what it's going to cost to keep this company alive, I said calmly. And for the first time in a decade, they listened. For example, I said, laying out a stack of neatly labeled documents. These falsified financial reports you've been circulating to potential investors. And these undisclosed debt buried in shell contracts. Oh, and my personal favorite, I slid the final folder across the table, watching Darren's hands tremble. Documentation showing how you unlawfully pushed my mother and me out of my father's company 10 years ago. The color drained from his face. You can't prove. Actually, I cut in. I can. I tilted my head toward the boardroom door. It opened slowly. There stood my mother, elegant in navy silk, chin lifted, eyes sharp. Hello, Mother, I greeted. Right on cue. She walked in with steady grace, setting down a thick binder in front of Darren. You really should have paid more attention to who was buying up those so-called worthless shares you pressured me into selling, she said coolly. Westlake Holdings has held majority ownership for quite some time now. Trevor stood, his chair screeching back. This is insane. She's a nobody, just a janitor. Correction, I replied calmly. I own the facilities company contracted to clean this building, just as I own the venture firm you've been begging for capital. And as of this morning, I also own the controlling interest in Linford Dynamics. I tapped a button on my phone. The screen at the front of the room lit up with Westlake's portfolio. Billions in managed assets, dozens of acquisitions, and now, headline bold, majority ownership Linford Dynamics. You see, Uncle Darren, while you were busy laughing at the idea of women in tech, I was quietly building an empire. Every time I emptied your trash, I was gathering intelligence. Every time you dismissed me, I was performing due diligence. It stood, relishing the sight of his shrinking posture. And now I own the company my father built, the legacy you tried to steal. Every bit of it. You can't do this, he rasped. We're family. Mother's laugh rang through the room, sharp and cold. Family? Was it family when you took advantage of me weeks after my husband's funeral? When you signed documents behind closed doors while I was still grieving? I pressed another button. The double doors opened again. This time, 2 suited security personnel entered. These gentlemen will help you gather your things, I said smoothly. Your keycards are already disabled. Trevor's voice cracked. You're firing us? No, I said, slowly gathering my papers. I'm reclaiming what's mine. I paused, tapping my chin in mock thought. Although, I added, we do have openings in janitorial services, and I hear it's a humbling way to observe company operations. Marin lurched to his feet, fists clenched, face flushed. You arrogant little... Careful, Uncle, I interrupted, nodding to security. They work for me now, and unlike you, they're professionals. He froze. The silence that followed was thick with realization. The empire he'd stolen had been retaken, quietly, completely, and with elegance. And now the boardroom belonged to me. As security escorted Darren and Trevor out, I turned to the silent, stunned board members. Well, I said smoothly, adjusting the cuff of my blazer. Now that the disruption has passed, shall we discuss the future of Linford Dynamics? A few exchanged glances, but no one spoke. I have some exciting plans for modernization, I continued. A full restructuring of internal systems, green-lighted R&D initiatives, and above all, ethical leadership from the top down. The hour that followed was one of the most gratifying of my life. I laid out a precise roadmap, new cybersecurity protocols, a complete overhaul of outdated software systems, and a partnership initiative to rebuild employee trust. I spoke not just as an executive, but as someone who had walked these halls unnoticed, who had seen the cracks up close and knew exactly where to reinforce. By the end of the meeting, even the most skeptical directors were leaning forward, nodding, signing off. Later that night, I sat alone in the corner office, my father's office. His nameplate, polished, slightly worn, rested on the desk once again. The city lights of downtown Chicago blinked outside the massive windows. My mother entered quietly, carrying 2 champagne flutes. "Your father would be so proud," she said softly, handing me a glass. I accepted it, letting the golden bubbles rise as I thought of the long, quiet years of planning. "Do you think 10 years of cleaning offices was too petty?" I asked. She laughed, a real, genuine laugh. Darling, you built a billion-dollar company while letting them think you were nothing. That's not petty. That's brilliant." My phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. Messages poured in. From Darren, "You've destroyed this family." From Trevor, "You can't do this to us." From various cousins, "We didn't know. We're so sorry." I blocked them all with a single tap. "What now?" my mother asked. I stood, walking over to the window. "I found Dad's old nameplate in the storage room downstairs," I said, lifting it carefully. "Now, we rebuild. The right way." Just then, my desk phone lit up. "Security. We caught Darren in the server room," the guard reported, "trying to delete files from the company archive." I didn't even flinch. "I backed up the servers months ago," I said calmly. "Let him go." "Should we press charges?" I considered it. No. He's already lost everything. His position, his reputation, his pride. And tomorrow, when the press releases go out confirming Westlake Holdings' acquisition of Linford Dynamics and naming me as CEO, he'll lose the last thing he's clinging to, the illusion that he ever had real power. I turned back toward the window, my reflection superimposed over the skyline. I remembered all the nights I stood in this very spot, mop in hand, headset on, studying stock tickers and investor reports in between shifts. "You know what the best part is, Mom?" I said quietly. She raised an eyebrow. He spent 10 years looking straight through me, never realizing that the woman he thought was invisible was becoming everything. Sometimes revenge is allowed. Sometimes it's not a courtroom drama or a screaming match in a boardroom. Sometimes the best revenge is patience, grace, precision. It's watching your enemies crumble under the weight of your success. It's showing the world that the girl they ignored, dismissed, and underestimated was the one they should have feared all along. And sometimes the sweetest victory doesn't come from cleaning offices. It comes from owning the entire building they are in. I raised my glass high to the skyline, the reflection of the city flickering in my champagne. To 10 years of patience. To taking back everything. My mother clinked her glass against mine. To cleaning up the family business, she said with a smile. Permanently. If you felt even a fraction of what I did standing in that boardroom finally reclaiming what was stolen, then don't scroll past. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Tell me about a time someone underestimated you, and if you're still waiting for your moment, let this be your reminder. Patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. Quiet doesn't mean powerless. Subscribe to follow the rest of my story, and remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting. It's succeeding loudly. On your own terms. Let's rewrite the rules together. I'll be reading every single comment.